So, climate change. Combating climate change is possibly the single greatest challenge we as a species will ever encounter, and needless to say, stakes are high. One popular proposal in the realm of in outer space and whatnot is the idea of a great filter. That is just something that keeps a civilization from expanding outwards and becoming discoverable to others, such as us. There are many candidates for what is the most plausible great filtering event, but scientifically speaking, one clearly just stands to reason much more than any other, and that's the prospect of climate change. I've watched countless of these videos, read articles and whatnot on the final frontier, heading out in space, and it's just extremely fascinating. However, one just caveat to that is that developments in that area take a long time, which is just something it's just of the essence. It's not something that we're going to have if we don't focus on the issue at hand, and that's climate change. And so on the flip side, I've spent similar amount of time just reading articles, watching videos on climate change. I've already read a paper about it, more on the political side of it, but I've studied tediously the scientific aspect of it as well. Like I said, this is possibly the single, if not the greatest, challenge that we're going to have to overcome. And to do that, it's going to take a combined global effort to prevail. The most powerful, economic and political figures, most powerful nations to come together to fight this collectively. But that's in a perfect world that we don't live in. So it's just something that we have to deal with. That it's not gonna happen like that. So how can we start? How can we kind of work from the bottom and work our way up to maybe getting close to that ideal scenario? And that's individually taking charge in how you as an individual affect the environment. So I just wanted to go through a couple minor changes you can make to your own life to reduce your carbon footprint. And like I said, collectively, it could add up. It's not going to equate to the top, greenhouse gas producing industries and whatnot, but it's a start. Number one, the biggest one, is probably recycling. According to an EPA report in 2014, we Americans generated over 258 million tons of trash, and roughly 169 million of that was or ended up in landfills. Only about 89 million tons of solid waste was recycled, it's something, but it's a far cry from what it could be. Understanding proper recycling etiquette is paramount. For example, e-waste is a major one in our day and age, given our reliance on electronics. Reusing and repairing instead of throwing something out is, of course, recycling, and then properly disposing electronics that no longer function or whatnot when they break is one massive leap towards beginning the reversal of the effects of climate change. And number two, another major one that anyone can incorporate is just wasting less. I'm talking about energy that we're already going to use. Everyone knows, lights and heating in a house and whatnot. But what less people think about and are careful about is food. Not only what you eat, but understanding where it comes from. People tend to forget about that aspect. So supporting sustainable business practices here is what really helps out. And eating maybe a little more environmentally friendly. Planning is what is key here, but that obviously is time consuming, but I think it's definitely worth it. A third major practice is that I just briefly touched on is supporting sustainable business practices. Major contributors to greenhouse gas emissions, such as textile plants in the apparel industry is one big one. Another one that I, of course, mentioned previously is in the electronic space. Companies tend to get a little too comfortable with these anti-consumer practices, such as locking down products and not allowing them to be repaired by yourselves or increasing longevity that way. So like in the apparel industry, what takes charge is the high demand of, or is in the high demand of cheaply produced clothes. That comes from just these textile plants that produce so much carbon. But supporting a company that does not do that, not only is that going to support a business practice that is sustainable, it also kind of goes into the political side of things, like I said, just paying people fair wages and stuff, and that's just, not only is that a better world, but it's something that we can all strive to. And that's really two birds with one stone, But the only downside to supporting sustainable business practices right now is the economic factor. It does tend to be more expensive. When we've been grown so accustomed to these mass-produced, cheap labor products from places like China or Vietnam or whatnot. But if that's the price that it's going to take to come over that hump initially, I think that's well worth it. So ultimately, the single biggest change, if you combine all of this, an individual can make is just becoming educated and spreading the word, right? The more traction that we generate means that we have more influence in political and economic spheres. Voting with your wallet is one way that I've talked about, and gaining influence. That's how we influence the people that actually lead the world. We produce 51 billion tons of greenhouse gases, and like I said, the count was millions of tons of trash, and we need all of that to be zero. Enough of us can influence those at the if enough of us can influence those at the helm. That is how we can steer clear of this catastrophe.